So perhaps one of the most important thing that you will be taking in the IB would be the IB tests. Just like any education system, the tests are going to be the most important and the one that's actually going to, at the end of the day, decide the most score in your report card. Your IAs and EEs might take up, say, like the EE and TOK takes up a separate category in terms of score counting, and the IAs in each individual subject, if I remember correctly, takes up around 25% of overall marks. So that means they have big weightings. But that also just means that there is still going to be a massive gap between the actual score and, say, the scores of the IAs and EEs. You can perform really well in your IAs and EEs. That means you have extra credit for scores and everything, but that does not mean that you are going to have the best of the best score, because there's still going to be a massive void gap that is made up with participation, overall scores in the class, and especially the tests, because at the end of the day they are going to base their assessment most heavily on tests, just like a lot of other education systems. So how to survive the test in IB? Typical of IB program, they give you a lot of content. So you quite frankly need a flexible enough schedule to cram down all of these things. Sadly, the old strategies of just cramming the day before the test is not going to work too well, especially if you are one of the new year ones where there are no past papers where you can truly base everything off of, or your teacher have just given you a test that they have made themselves that are based on very little past paper questions. Sadly, those things you just simply cannot memorize. However, there are some caveats to that, because a lot of the time the IB grade boundaries are absolutely bonkers. A lot of the time, say something for physics, even just getting 1 or 2 points could push you up several grades, such as going from a 5 to a 7 pretty easily, just as long as you've answered 1 or 2 questions more correct. So because of this, a lot of the time it's a combination of the two, as I would basically try to say. It's by B, it's a balancing act. That B doesn't stand for baccalaureate, it stands for balance. So a lot of the time you have to more or less balance all the contents that you're taking in, no matter how incompetent teachers are. You should more or less try to learn the content that you have gotten that day. Say you go into business and you're learning unit 3.1 and you truly didn't understand something, a lot of the time it would benefit you a lot just to focus that day on, say, something like business. And if your schedule is good enough, you should already have all the other subjects at a certain good enough level that you don't need to focus on them on that day, but rather you could just focus on business and then truly get your mind and get your notes down on that certain thing, so that later on when a test does appear, it does truly help. Another way is that if you have not taken all that notes, you don't have a good schedule and everything, learn at least 2 weeks before. It's going to be a grueling prospect, however, just simply learning 2 weeks before, looking at contents of, say, YouTube videos and such would help immensely, just because the IB program, it exists somewhere online. If your teachers cannot explain it too well, you might as well go on the internet and see how it is. And a lot of time that does work out to help you survive through these tests. And yes, the tests carry the most weight, so put some weight on them. So simply put, try to study for it beforehand, try to get a semi-good score on it, and the best way to study for it is just to take that volume of all the work and put it out into more frequency over time. That will help you memorize and be a lot more rigorous with all the content. That's basically about it.